Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Table Talk Live. And it's me, Dr. Maggie, coming at you. And we have a top question, hot topic from last week. And the topic is, what are the top lies your doctors believe about food? Last week, we explored a ton about what is food trauma and why we have food trauma. And believe it or not, one of the top reasons why you said you were having food trauma was the way that your doctor doesn't or does deal with food in their conversations and in the way that they deal with you. So today we're going to dig deep into what are those top lies that your doctors believe that we're going to challenge and myth bust today on. So without further ado, we're going to dive right in, everybody. Here we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Transform Table Talk. It's me, Dr. Maggie, and I am a functional and holistic medicine physician, MD, and I focus on teaching people like you and providers on all these the root causes of health challenges. So I am a peak health strategist. I love thinking through what's the best strategy to deal with invisible and seemingly impossible to solve health challenges. So today we're going to continue to break the lid wide open all around food and food trauma. But before we go first, what I would love to do is, oh my gosh, the chat is lighting up. So really importantly, okay, I love to talk with you. I do not want to talk at you. And this is a two-way interaction. So what I would love is everybody who's watching right now in chat, give me a boom. Tell me where you're watching from. If you're an alumni of any of our programs, whether it's the Food Mapping Masterclass, our main program, My Hormone Masterclass, type in chat that you're an alumni and what program you graduated from. I would love to know that you're in the audience with me. I would love that. Thank you, everybody. Now, love it. Thank you. Chrissy's booming in from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Dennis coming in from Los Angeles, my hometown, Dennis. Thank you. All right. Jonathan's watching from Washington. All right, everybody. And Allison's coming in from Fillmore, from Melt. Oh my gosh, Allison, did I meet you at the Melt Retreat? I spoke at the Melt Retreat about a month ago. Did I meet you at the Melt Retreat? I would love to know. And Kate says, boom from Philly. I love it. Thank you, everybody. So last week, okay, actually, before we do that, I always have a prop. And since we're talking about food, it's going to be a food prop, okay? Last week was Dr. Maggie's Magic Green Elixir. This week, today, I just mixed this up. This is my Dr. Maggie's Bloody Good afternoon elixir. And I want you guys to guess what's in it, okay? Just so you know. And I will tell you already, one ingredient that's in it is, yeah, everything's better with a little tahini, I'm just going to say. So I'm just going to pour a little bit of that in. Okay, that is definitely one known ingredient in it. And since we're talking about food, I love spices. I love spicy. I love flavor. So we're going to be talking about food. And that is definitely one of the ingredients in here. If you know me and if you can guess what some of the ingredients in here are, go ahead and pop that in chat. I'm going to reveal it later, okay? I will tell you that I'm all about blood sugar balancing, protein, fat intake, macronutrients. So I will already tell you another ingredient in here is I am not going to miss an opportunity to get protein in. So Pro-Collagen WB is definitely one of the ingredients in here. All right, everybody. We're going to dig in. Last week, we talked about what is food trauma, and I defined all the ways in which food can cause reactions, right? And people last week, I remember, okay, and all you guys that were watching last week, type in chat, because I remember someone was talking about neuropathy, somebody was talking about POTS, people were talking about mast cell, histamine, people talked about chronic pain, people talked about autoimmune disease. So if you know food actually has an effect on your body, type in chat what that is, okay? I know that was some of the responses from last week's audience. From you guys, I would love to know, right? What are some of the reactions that you know you have with food, okay? And I'm going to validate that food absolutely has a connection with symptoms of many different types of chronic diseases, chronic health challenges of any type. But we're today talking about the one thing that gave you guys the most trauma last week was actually talking about what your doctors told you about food. or what your doctors told you about your understanding of how food is linked. So, today, what I want to do is explain from a doctor perspective. I'm a medical doctor, I'm an MD, 28 years in practice, my first 10 years as a family medicine physician until I got sick. Okay. And if you guys want to know more about my story, I've gone through my hormonal history, I've gone over my autoimmune history. But to put it short, the version is that at 30, well, after the birth of my each child of my after the birth of each of my children, two of them, I got into more and more chronic disease like fibromyalgia, brain fog, chronic pain, neuropathy. And at the age of 36, I went into early full-blown menopause, and I was told by my doctors that I was just getting older. And I was like, dude, I'm 36, I'm not 86. And later on, I discovered through my own digging and searching that I actually ended up diagnosing myself with autoimmune disease like Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune attack against my thyroid. And later to discover I have multiple different autoimmune targets, like I have mixed connective tissue disorder. That's why a lot of my joints, nerves, and my gut and intestines are affected. Right. So in that journey through going through hormonal crisis, through tons of issues with autoimmune disease, and dealing with not lots of autoimmune attack against my nerves and my nervous system, I dealt with a lot of POTS, dysautonomia type symptoms as well. So I've been through the gamut. And I also work with people with all those symptoms or diagnoses. And I also work with people who have a lot of allergic related symptoms like mast cell and histamine intolerance. Now, if you don't know what it is, type in chat mast cell or histamine intolerance, because I actually have a whole training series I did around mast cell and histamine intolerance. If you put mast cell or histamine in chat, we'll get to you our multi-part training series all about mast cell and the role of the connection between mast cell and food. If you're dealing with POTS or dysautonomia, you want to know the connection between POTS and dysautonomia and food. Type in POTS and we'll get the training series to you. Okay. Today we're talking about food trauma. Now, last week we went through all the different types of food trauma, and we talked. One of the main things you guys told me was that your doctors was a major cause of it. So I want to explain to you from a doctor's perspective to you why doctors believe these lies. They're not trying to lie to you. I promise you, I myself am a doctor and I know a lot of doctors. We are good hearted, most of us anyway, are good hearted individuals that go in wanting to heal and help people. But with the best of healing and a desire to help people, we are trained in a medical system, in a learning system, in an educational system that is broken. Doctors are trained, whether you're in Canada, we have lots of doctors from Canada, Australia, and the US, other countries reaching out to get provider certification to learn about these root causes. So, in my 28 years experience as a medical doctor and in training doctors to learn root cause medicine, one of the things that is really clear is that the way that doctors are trained is for us to be really sorters. We're trained to actually be really quickly in a very quick period of time to write a prescription, order a test, or send you to a specialist as quickly as possible. As a primary care provider, family medicine doctor, I'm trained to sort as quickly as possible. And also, like whatever I can't deal with really quickly in that 10, 15 minutes, I'm going to sort and send where else I'm going to go. That's what we're really trained to do. And you guys have heard me say that I'm going to have you guys guess. Okay. Everybody, get ready to type in chat. Okay. In my 4 years of medical school training and then 3 years of training to be a family medicine physician, that's 7 years of medical school training, medical school and licensure training. How long, how many hours or days or weeks do you think I spent learning about, let's just pick food, the role of food and how it can cause symptoms or disease? Let's just pick that one topic because I mean, this is the topic today. And just thinking about yourself, how many minutes or hours or months have you trained? Have you trained to learn about food? So think about that and think about how long do you think as a medical doctor, and I graduated from one of the top medical schools in the country, UCLA. I also worked as a medical director in a family medicine clinic where I trained young physicians, family physicians on how to deal with patients, right? And I work right now training clients. I teach, right? So how many in those 7 years, how long do you think I got? Allison says 0. Okay. And Marcel's watching from the Philippines. I love it, Marcel. Thank you. Um, Hi, Marcel. And Marcel, I love working with Eliza right now on food. Exactly. So thank you for all of you guys all around the world that not only are doing our programs, but referring your friends and family to work with us. And yes, we work with people. Me and my team work with people around the world. Um, Betty Holly says 2 hours. You think 2 hours? Okay, Betty. Number two is correct. Okay, 20 minutes. Yeah, I'm smiling and laughing about it, only because I think it's shocking. I think it's a travesty, and I think it's shocking. Sometimes, like I think sometimes dealing with something with humor is probably sometimes feels healthier, but I think it's a joke. And for me, this is how they still currently train physicians at the top medical schools around the world. And you wonder why, if I only receive, let's say, 20 minutes of training around food, um, the only extra training I got after the 20 minutes was when I got diagnosed with gestational diabetes during my first pregnancy. And that was around that was towards later on in my medical training. And I had a one-time visit with a dietitian to learn about gestational diabetes, and that was another 30, maybe 45 minutes. And that's only because I was diagnosed with something that was food related, right? So really, as part of my formal medical training, about 20 minutes. And so we are not trained as doctors to understand that food really matters. And last week we talked about how food and food trauma is really linked. And a lot of people, how many of you guys assume that only gut related symptoms could be related to food, or have been told by your doctors? Type in chat, right? How many of you guys think, or you've been told by your doctors, that if it isn't immediately upon the consumption of food and it's related to your gut, then it's not related to food, right? So that's the common misconception too, is that the symptoms. So your symptoms, one of the top lies, let's start with lie number one. Lie number one is that your health symptoms have nothing to do with food. And why is that a lie? How many of you guys have been told that your symptoms have nothing to do with food? And if you've been told that, type in chat, and what were those symptoms? I know last week we were talking to Carissa, I think, about um, neuropathy, nerve pain, and she was told that had nothing to do with food. And last week I talked about how food had a lot to do with it. I could make that connection, right? And one of the reasons, why don't doctors believe that food is related to the symptom? Well, let's say the symptom is pain or neuropathy, which is pain in your nerves. It's not necessarily time-wise linked to the consumption of food in a very short time frame. It's not like I ate this peanut butter and literally 2 minutes later or 20 minutes later, I get the nerve pain or the pain. That there's a delay. There's not an immediate attribution of the consumption with the effect. What if that result, and I'm going to tell you from my own experience, right? Food reactions can take sometimes minutes, but most of the time can take hours to days. So if, let's say, you have nerve pain and it really flares 2 to 4 days after you consume broccoli, and you eat broccoli 2 to 3 times a week, how do you know that there's any relationship with it? Is that a boom? Type in chat if that's a boom for you. Okay. And yeah, and Alex says here, I think the true cause of POTS is nerve attack from autoimmune. Well, interestingly, and this was continuation from the conversation with Alex last week about how, can food reactions cause nerve pain? And POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, it's actually related. He says it's an immune attack against your nervous system. You're right, Alexander, and I'm the only one that's saying that. I'm the only physician that's saying that. You know why? Because I work with POTS, dysautonomia, and long haul for breakfast. Give me a hard problem for lunch and dinner. Okay. So the issue of causation is there, meaning like the food itself is causing a symptom. In diagnosis like POTS, for example, people don't realize not only can food cause issues, but if it's an autoimmune attack against the nervous system, and people say, oh, there's no connection between autoimmune attack and POTS, and that you should go see the cardiologist. Wrong. There's a problem with causation here, everybody, meaning that the real cause of these problems and with the diagnosis of the symptom, the connection is not there in the training for doctors. Boom. Did that ring a light bulb for you, right? And interestingly, in regular conventional medical training, when someone comes to you, let's say with nerve pain or with POTS, we don't even care what the real cause is. We're only trained on what prescription or blood work or referral we need to give you. Okay. So there is no training on really what's causing something complex like neuropathy, like POTS, like autoimmune diseases. Does that make sense, everybody? I mean, so the way that we train our doctors and we train, here's the symptom, here is the prescription, the blood test, or the referral. That's the only thing that they're trained to do. Really good hearted individuals. And damn, I was really good at it the first 10 years of my career. Okay. So therefore, I just want to point that out is one of the reasons that doctors don't believe that symptoms and food are linked. Number one is because the time between the intake of the food and the reaction frequently is delayed, right? And number two reason is because doctors are not trained on what's really causing the problem. Our job, our vocation is to figure out what to prescribe, what blood test to order, and which specialist to send you to. Okay. Does that make sense, everybody? Perfect. Okay, cool. Now, Alexander brought up autoimmune disease. This is the next lie. And I want you guys get ready to type in chat if you've heard this. Diet has nothing to do with autoimmune disease. Okay, how many of you have heard this? How many of you have autoimmune diseases? And autoimmune disease can be rheumatoid arthritis, Sjogren's, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, multiple sclerosis, right? Hashimoto's, these are all autoimmune diseases. And that's only the ones that we can diagnose. How many of you have mystery illnesses and symptoms that you know are autoimmune, but your doctors refuse to say it's autoimmune? And I'm talking to you with POTS, dysautonomia, long haul, mast cell, histamine issues, fibromyalgia, right? Ooh, that's good. One ingredient in here, tomato juice. Okay. So, does food have anything to do with autoimmune disease? Why do doctors insist on that line? Ciara, oh, you're back. So, yes, she's been told that autoimmune disease and food is not related. And Miranda says she has POTS. Perfect. Okay. The reason that doctors don't believe that food has anything to do with autoimmune disease is because it is not in the diagnosis or treatment plan of our training in autoimmune disease. So the only training that doctors have in school about autoimmune diseases, number one is, do we know what blood tests we can do or bone tests or to diagnose it? And the problem is that I would say in my experience, I am an autoimmune expert. 98% or more of autoimmune diseases, we don't even have a blood test to diagnose yet. Okay. So, and yet we go with the symptoms and we go to the doctor and we say, hey, we think we have an autoimmune issue. My joints hurt or something. And then they do some blood work. We're trained to know what blood work to order. And then when the blood panel comes back and says it's negative, we say, you don't have an autoimmune disease. So, but that's what our training is, diagnosis first. Okay. And our ability to diagnose an autoimmune disease, we're able to probably, with blood work and other diagnostic studies, in my experience, we can only diagnose like 2-3% of autoimmune diseases. The other 97% of it, we don't even have a blood test for yet. So that's why a lot of people walk around thinking we have super special rare unicorn diseases. And the truth is the blood test doesn't even exist. So number one, our main training is how to run the small panel of blood tests to then tell you you do or you don't have autoimmune disease. And we're wrong 98% of the time because we only have blood tests to diagnose a couple percentage of the autoimmune disease. To make this example super clear to you, I'm going to use the thyroid as an example. Okay. In the thyroid alone, and those of you who are alumni who are watching can answer this question. Those of you who worked with me in my thyroid masterclass can answer this question. Okay. In the thyroid alone, which is the size of a walnut right here in your neck, everybody, how many different targets of autoimmune attack are there? Scientific fact. How many different targets could be under attack by your immune system? Type in chat. Anyone know? And you can guess. Alexander, Sierra, I know you can guess, right? And Kate, like the Betty might know. Okay. Type in chat. Okay. Yeah. It's not even a couple hundred. Okay. Anyone? There are in the thyroid alone. Someone wrote 900. Kate thinks 900. Okay. Jane, thank you. Alumni, 6,000. Okay. In just this land, 5,997. You kind of right, Nancy, and I'm going to explain why. The real answer is around 6,000. Okay. And 5,997 is close. And I have a real feeling I know why Nancy said that. Okay. You guys want to know why she said that? Super smarty pants. I love working with smart people, okay, who have learned from me and they're utilizing this knowledge to think through problems logically. I'm a problem solver. So in the thyroid alone, which is the size of a little butterfly right here, there is 6,000 different targets. Guess how many blood tests in a regular commercial lab do we have? How many different targets can we test for in a regular lab? If you're lucky, 3. Okay. And if you go to a super specialty lab, how many? 11. So even if you went and got the Shishi super special lab $1,000 panel on autoimmune targets on the thyroid, you might get 11 tests. That means 11 targets. The other 5,990 targets didn't get tested because they don't exist. The tests don't exist. So how can a doctor tell you you don't have an autoimmune disease of your thyroid when they only tested literally 3 out of the 6,000 targets with 5,997 other targets not even tested or not even able to be tested? And Nancy, winner, chicken dinner, she says in most labs we can only detect 3. Alexander's so right. Alexander, you're not even in one of my programs. And from all the lives you've been on, you're learning so much. I freaking love you, man. So yes, I pay attention to the chat and I've been watching comments all these years, everybody. I know who you are. I'm watching. All right. Now, so that points out to me that we have a big problem with our ability as doctors to diagnose autoimmune disease. So if most people walking around with these mystery symptoms don't even have a diagnosis, right? And we can only diagnose a really small amount of autoimmune diseases, less than 3% of autoimmune diseases. We have a diagnostic problem. Okay. Number one. So we're not even identifying most of the people with autoimmune disease. Number 2, doctors, remember I told you you're trained in just like 3 things. Number 1, what blood tests to order when they see you, okay, which we already know is a really limited tool. Number 2, if you qualify for a diagnosis, then what medicine they can prescribe you. The only reason we are diagnosing people to qualify for certain diagnosis is a lot of it is actually logistical, meaning like, well, if you have a diagnosis for someone, then that qualifies you to prescribe a certain drug with a certain insurance company for them. And it also qualifies so you can bill the office visit, okay? Because we need a diagnostic code to bill the office visit. Okay? So really we're diagnosing people so that we could figure out what number 2 drug we can prescribe for them. Okay? So that number 2, if there's no drug you can prescribe for them or the diagnostic testing is stuck, then number 3, what specialist you can refer them to. Those are the only 3 skills. So in that case, most people who eventually, let's say most people with autoimmune disease never know they have an autoimmune disease because we can't test for it, right? And their doctors aren't trained to recognize the patterns obviously autoimmune, like I see and you see, right? Because there's no training for that. And then they themselves are. So number 1, they can't diagnose. Number 2, they're only trained on what medicine to prescribe for it. So if the training is, this is the medicine, this is the medicine, this is the medicine, there is no training around food. There really just isn't. Remember my whole medical school training, 20 minutes around food. How the heck am I going to be able to talk to you about the role of food in your autoimmune disease? After that, I can't, right? I don't have any qualifications for it before, right? And that was when I stumbled upon getting autoimmune disease myself. So lack of training. So really prescription only. And so those are the couple things, right? And so that would be another reason why a lot of doctors don't realize that food is related to autoimmune disease. Number 3, I'm going to talk about is the lack of experience in dealing with autoimmune patients. Because there's such a small percentage of autoimmune disease that can be diagnosable, a lot of people don't realize that doctors really don't work with a lot of autoimmune patients because as soon as somebody gets diagnosed with autoimmune, they get sent off, let's say, to the GI doctor, the gut doctor for ulcerative colitis. They get sent off to the rheumatologist. Those people are specialists in prescribing the medication, and that's it. So, as a primary care provider, or most of the time, the doctors that you see, we basically, once someone's diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder, boom, they get shunted off to the specialist. We don't ever deal with them again because they're going to be taken care of by the prescription at the specialist. So, that's the way that it works with autoimmune disease. Now, I know food has a ton to do with an autoimmune disease. And do you guys want to know why? If you want to know why, type in chat. If you want to pick my brain on this, how is food related with autoimmune disease and why is it a no brainer for me and the people we work with? Type in chat. I want to know. Okay. So I'm going to go into it. Okay. And Sierra talked about how can you calm down inflammation. So I'm going to talk about, and this goes into the next lie that a lot of doctors believe, which is that gluten has nothing to do with health. Gluten free is just a fad. Gluten has nothing to do with health and health challenges. So I'm going to tell you something. Gluten is one of the biggest triggers of autoimmune attack. Okay. And people with whether they have celiac disease or they have what we call gluten sensitivity. And I know this because how many people have I worked with that discovered that one of the devil they didn't know was actually gluten? I'm going to explain a mechanism. Okay. So, what is autoimmune disease? Autoimmune disease is where your immune system is supposed to look at a germ outside your body and says, "You're a germ and I'm going to kill you." Okay. And with people with autoimmune disease, their immune system actually is confused and it confuses a part of your own body and says, "You're a germ and I'm going to hurt you." So in the case of Hashimoto's, it looks at different parts of your thyroid, says, "You're a germ and I'm going to kill you," right? In the case of, let's say, rheumatoid arthritis, it looks at the joints, the synovial fluid in the joints, and says, "You're a germ and I'm going to kill you," right? So it's making your immune system is making mistakes and it's mistaking your own body part and says, "You're a germ and I'm going to hurt you." Now, if it's doing that, what's the likelihood? It's also part of your immune system is also your allergy branch. We have an allergy branch for our immune system. So when you're allergic reacting to something, that's another branch of your immune system. So if you already have several branches of your immune system, really off kilter, like your branch that protects you from infection, got no soldiers because it's busy attacking yourself, right? If it's already the second branch is mistaking different body parts as a germ and it's making more and more mistakes, it's going to attack more and more parts of your body. And then the third branch of your immune system is sitting here like, I'm going to look at food or environmental allergens and say, "You're a germ and I'm going to react to you with histamines." Well, would that be messed up with someone with autoimmune issues because their other branches are messed up? And the answer is 100% of the time, yes. So, how many of you in the audience right now, and I know a lot of you watching, have any sort of autoimmune issue? You suspect you have an autoimmune issue? Type in chat. And here's the connection I want you to make. Get ready, everybody. How many of you know that your autoimmune issues are linked with food reactions that are allergic related, right? Or know it's related with skin allergy reactions like eczema, or know it's related with lung allergy reactions like asthma? Allison, thank you, right? So I'm not making this up. We know for a fact that people with autoimmune disease have lots of risk and lots of symptoms related with increased problems with allergy. Kate says me, right? So this is you're giving me the data. You're the proof. Doesn't matter whether doctors believe that link exists or not. You guys are actually the walking incubators of data collection here. We cannot dismiss your symptoms from your body as data points. Okay, I want you to write that down. We cannot dismiss your body's symptoms as really valuable data points. And by your own data, by those of you with autoimmune disease and you also have increased allergic reactions, you are already providing data and proof that food allergies, environmental allergies, 100% at a peak and an increase for people with any autoimmune disease. Boom. Okay, if that's a boom, type in chat. And that's because we have it. We have data from our own bodies. The doctors don't. Before I came down with any autoimmune issues, before I had food allergies and food sensitivities, before I realized gluten was a big trigger for my autoimmune disease, I didn't believe it either. I had no proof and data from my training, and I had no proof and data from my own body. So Number one and two, I'm providing you guys the training, and I do with all the programs we work with, everybody we work with. And number two, you're providing proof from data from your own body. So I want you to believe your body. And I don't know how important it is because it is really important. We're talking about lies or misconceptions that doctors believe, right? And when you look at the converse of what a lie is, what's the truth? What's the truth? And I want everybody in here to really tap into your innate intuitiveness of knowing what is truth about your own health and your own body and your own mind. And to me, that is the biggest assault of food trauma that we can do to somebody is that when we use the word trauma, I we are inflicting we're inflicting in people a huge, huge mistrust they have of themselves and others. Like the one of the biggest pain points and result of trauma is that we lose trust in others. But I think the worst thing is we lose trust in ourselves. So, what is the biggest, most important lesson here that I'm talking about is I want you guys to realize that the only way out of this is self trust. How do I commit? How do I commit to a plan and action steps to gain my self trust? Because they believe in lies and misconceptions. You need to gain trust. And so, first thing first, number one, they didn't get the education, you do. That's what you're doing on this. And that's what we're doing here. And I'm also going to say that's what we do when you guys work with me and our team on any of our programs. And I just want to put the slide up here too. One of the most important commitments that you can make is to book a call with our team. We want to talk to you because I want to know what's going on with your health and see if it's something that we can help with because I want to educate you to gain your self trust back. And that's what we do in any and all of our programs, regardless it's my hormone masterclass, my food mapping masterclass, or our main transform program. Right. So I'm going to tell you is committing to your own education is really important because the only way we can combat lies and misinformation or misconceptions is number one, you, me, myself, and I commit to our own education. And number two, I want you to start listening to your body as data because you know what? I believe her. I believe her. Your body is a really valuable source of your education and your data, but you got to believe her, right? So those of you with autoimmune disease, that says that your symptoms and your for allergies and autoimmunity totally linked. You're right. Okay. And I'm going to give you a little piece of why we already talked about why people with autoimmunity have more allergic, food related allergic reactions as well as environmental allergens, right? So I'm going to give you one extra bonus piece. Then what the hell do you do about it? What the heck can you do about it? Well, the number one most important tool to calm autoimmunity, right, is to know that food is related to it. And number two is to identify how food is related to it. So there's two major ways that there's many ways, but the two top ways that food contributes to autoimmune attack and worsening that attack is number one, could absolutely be allergic related. So if the immune system suspects, like if it's attacking your body like crazy, but it also suspects that when it sees a food and it says, oh my gosh, it's a food and I don't like it, I'm allergic to it, it's going to send all these soldiers to attack it. And it's going to raise all sorts of red flags in your body. You know, Sierra calls it inflammation. We call it histamines. We call it inflammatory factors, inflammation. And it literally becomes this war zone in your gut and throughout your body. Because what happens is when one branch of your immune system is going nuts, okay, whether it's attacking your own body or it's attacking food, the other branches go nuts too. So in that sense, every time you do have true food triggered autoimmune attacks, there's a real reaction to that. It's not just a reaction to that food right there. Everything else your body's attacking with the immune system is also increased. That's one of the reasons that I'm going to talk about gluten, the link between gluten and autoimmune. And it's not just for those people with autoimmune. How many of you don't have an autoimmune disease, but know that when you eat gluten, you have a reaction to it? Type in chat, gluten reaction, type that in chat, right? What happens is that gluten is a super trigger. The way the gluten molecule looks, I call it a little human-y. So what happens is that when you consume the gluten isn't just gluten. The way the molecule looks, your body sees it and it kind of looks like cells of your own body, but not. But when it does, it triggers your immune system to say, "Oh my gosh, I need to attack this," just like I do autoimmune parts, her own body parts. So it's a really interesting mechanism. But gluten really is, if you have autoimmune disease or you are gluten sensitive, triggers a super attack, and it ignites the immune system to attack everywhere else more. So it makes everything worse that's autoimmune, and it's not even an immediate food related reaction. Does that make sense? And does this ring true for anybody? If you could type that in chat, that would be really great. Yeah, and looking here, Peppa says, I didn't have it when I was a child. I only had it when I was 45. And that's an interesting point. Can reactions to food get worse over time? Yes. Yes. Okay. And it's repeated exposures, right? Just like we're not all born with certain types of allergies. At some point it starts. And one of the reasons that a food reaction or a food allergy can actually start at a later point in life is that repeated exposures worsen it. Okay. Now, and then the other aspect of it is that our digestion, and I haven't even gone into it, but our digestion, our ability to digest food and the food allergens decrease over time, or there could be other assaults on it. But at any point, if your digestion gets worse over time, food allergies starts to go sky high, and the amount of food allergens in your body goes sky high. Okay. This is really my next lie. This leads me to the next lie. Okay. And, I would like it if my team could help highlight some of these comments, because it's hard for me to keep track of both. That'd be really helpful. Um, it leads me to the next thing, which is the only way that we can react to food is it allergic only? One of the misconceptions doctors have is that if it's not an immediate, what we call IgE food allergy, meaning you eat shrimp and your lips swell up, okay? You eat peanut, your lips swell up, you can't breathe. That's an immediate, what we call IgE, anaphylactic allergic reaction. Doctors believe that if that's not the reaction that you have to food, then all the other types of food reactions don't exist. They're wrong. They're in your head. Okay. And I'm going to ask how many of you listening to your own body, I'm going to ask you, my own body, ask Maggie, my body, and say, hey, like, is that true? That's the only way I react to food. How, listening to her, does my body actually react to food? Start writing it down. And I want you to do this because I want you to validate yourself. And I want for us to validate each other collectively. I want an intention here to validate each other that our food reactions are real, and that our bodies are really intelligent, spiritual beings that collect scientific data, and it's talking to us 24/7 a day, right? So all of you guys that have food reactions that are not the immediate anaphylactic reactions, and you react to food, type in chat, what do you believe your body has been telling you all along, right? Type in chat, right? There we go. And the reason I'm talking about this is that, I kind of lost my train of thought right there. My train of thought was around the different type of like believing our body and the information it tells us. Oh, I lost my train of thought. Where was I at? Well, digestion. That's where I was at. Thank you. All right, cool. I'm going to take a sip. All right. So here's the thing. If it's not immediate anaphylactic allergies, okay, which is what we call an IgE allergic reaction, there's a different type of allergy that's a different branch of the allergy system, and it's called the food sensitivities, which is slow, low reactions that take hours or days to come up, and they involve antibodies, not IgE, but they're called IgG. So they're low and slow. So that's called food sensitivities, scientific, and they're real. We're going to get into that later. But there's also a third type of reaction that your body can have to food that has nothing to do with allergy. And I hinted at it. Does anyone know what it is? It's digestion. And I love, gosh, whose story was it that we were? Ada. Oh my God, Ada. If you're watching, I would love if you could share your story. And if you guys want me to interview Ada or bring her on one of my lives, I would do that. So Ada, like many people with mast cell and histamine, has been working with us in our main program about mast cell and histamine intolerance. And a lot of people assumed, hey, if it's not anaphylactic food allergies that my allergist says it's not, Then the second thing it's going to be food sensitivities. And a lot of people come into my food mapping masterclass or in our program thinking, I'm just going to test and see if it's food sensitivities, which I think is a great idea, right? And here's something really, and most people think that's going to be it if I have mast cell or histamine intolerance or allergy related. And Ada's food test with mast cell and histamine intolerance came back. Guess what? Guess what she was intolerant or sensitive to? Type in chat. Do you guys know how many things? And she has mast cell and histamine. And so, how many people here have mast cell histamine? And I'm going to tell you, if you did food mapping, just the blood test with us, how many things do you think is going to light up and show up? Yeah, right. Lori said for her gluten, right? Okay, so you're thinking, so in Ada's case, nothing showed up. Okay, mast cell histamine intolerance, you think it's going to show up 100 things because you've been told other doctors you got 100 things if you did food sensitivity testing. There was there was absolutely nothing that showed up, and that was amazing. I think it's awesome. You know why? It highlighted that even for and especially for people with mast cell histamine intolerance and autoimmune disease, 50% of the reactions that you have when you eat food isn't even allergic related. Typically, I see it's digestion related. So if you have a digestion problem, you can't break down or digest the food. When you eat the food, you still react to it. But is it because it's allergic or is it because you can't digest the darn thing? So, can digestion cause food intake related reactions? And I hope the answer is going to be boom in the chat. Yes, yes, yes. And what? Hell yes. Okay. So here's the other thing, food reactions aren't all related to food allergies or food sensitivities. In fact, in my experience, many people think it is, and many doctors may think it is. And it turns out it's the whole devil they didn't know is that they didn't realize it was a digestion problem. And Ada is, gosh, I've been working with Ada for about 8 weeks right now. And she says she hasn't had any hives at all from the mast cell histamine intolerance for 2 whole weeks. And that's not by removing more food allergens because she doesn't have any more food allergens. That's by what? Supporting her digestion. Okay. So this really highlights to you how important is, right, Marcel? Like, how important is digestion in autoimmune? How important is digestion in POTS, mast cell, histamine intolerance? Crazy. Okay. And, and so I just want to share with you guys that the reason why doctors also don't believe that food is related to that, well, why doctors don't believe food allergies is related to some of your symptoms and reactions is because it's not always food allergies either. It's digestion, which is something they have no training in. I'm sorry to tell you, but your GI doctors, your family medicine doctors, your functional docs, your naturopaths don't have any training, very low training in digestion, which is why for me, it's huge. I focus a huge part of what we do on digestion. Okay. And so, is that cool? Like the role of digestion in food is really, really critical, everybody. And now I want to make some time for Q&A. I know that my team has said that there was a lot of questions in chat, and I want to leave some time for Q&A. I know there's a lot more lies and misconceptions I can blow through, but I want to play full out with you guys. So you guys listen to some questions. Let's see what we got. Oh, this is good. How can I differentiate my dairy allergy from lactose intolerance? This is really good. And that's why in my food mapping masterclass, if you guys want to learn more about how food and allergies are related, I also have a training series called Road to Food Freedom. If you want a free training series on all the different pieces we're talking about here, put Road to Food Freedom, or just put the word road in chat and we'll get it to you. Marcel, like a lot of the people we work with, one of the really important pieces to educate you on, because your doctors don't know, is how do I tell the difference between if it's food lactose intolerance is a digestion problem, meaning that genetically you lack the enzyme to digest lactose, the sugar in dairy. That's not an allergy problem. So, how important would accurate data on your allergy to dairy be in differentiating between the two? If that's a boom, type it in chat. Okay. This is why it's really critical to have accurate food sensitivity testing. Okay. By the time people come to me, they've already seen the allergist IgE and had all the negative testing or whatever. Right. So we're talking about, we're talking about dealing with IgG food sensitivities or food allergies that are low and slow, really difficult for your allergist to figure out. Right. So, how important would be to get accurate data, super accurate data to say these are your real food sensitivities, right? It's not easy to come by. We do that, right? And so let's say I was looking at Marcel's results, and Marcel says every time I eat dairy, I get bloating or I get diarrhea. I'm just giving an example. Okay. I'm not saying that's her. And we actually know that she doesn't have an anaphylactic reaction to dairy. It's not like she eats dairy and then she dies, right? We know that when she eats dairy, a few hours or minutes later, she gets this reaction. So that's the symptom, that's the data. And then we look at the test result, and there is nothing that shows up that she is positive to in the dairy aisle. So what does that tell you? I'm going to ask you guys logically. Type it in chat. What does that tell you? Okay. Every time she eats dairy, she has gas, bloating, and diarrhea. Okay. But we do food sensitivity testing, working with her, and it's all negative. So is it a dairy sensitivity or an allergy, or is it a lactose intolerance? Boom. Type in chat. Right. So there you go. That's how I tell a difference, which is I educate. So I would take Marcel, I would take Dawn, I would take Alexander, and I'd be like, okay, everybody, let's go through what are the different steps in digestion so you understand exactly what symptoms of digestion is at every step. Number two, let's take a look at your past medical history. Let's look at your family history. Let's look at your current symptoms. And then now let's put up your data. And then let's put it together so we can, with a fine tooth comb, take it all apart so you know exactly what's digestion related. What are food sensitivities? Right. So I want you guys to start understanding all of this. Right. So 100% based on the scenario I just gave you, everybody here, I hope you know she has a lactose intolerance if that was the clinical scenario. But it's important for me to take data to take the data. And data is not just the blood work, it's Marcel's, let's say, past medical history, her family history, and her current symptoms, put it together and be working with her, teaching her, and working with her live as our team does to figure that out. So, boom, what? In 5 minutes, we come up with the answer to that. It doesn't have to be a lifelong mystery or so. Got it? Ready for another question? What do you think is the biggest cause of POTS, hormones or autoimmune nerve attack? Similar to the flavor of the question you asked last week, equal. I actually, I'm curious. I did probably at least 10 different trainings around POTS. How many people have POTS, long haul, or dysautonomia here in chat? I don't want to just answer that one question. I want you guys to get the whole kit and caboodle answer. So I have like a 9-part training series on POTS, long haul, and dysautonomia. Okay. And if you want that, put POTS in chat right now and we will get it to you because there's so many causes of POTS your doctor don't know about. It does not belong in the cardiologist's office. POTS and dysautonomia is absolutely a hormone problem. There's an autoimmune attack against the hormone making organs. Okay. It also is an autoimmune attack against the nervous system, which is called the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. So it's an autoimmune issue. And then number 3, people with POTS, because of these autoimmune issues, have a lot of increasing amount of food related allergy reactions, and they have a lot of digestion problems. Okay. So this is why somebody like, let's say Ada with mast cell, within just, 2 months of working with me with no additional foods to remove, could have her symptoms be gone. Right. This is also why Dana working with me, she had, I don't know, I don't know the ins and outs of Alexander's case, but I have the worst, hardest cases of POTS after Mayo, after Johns Hopkins. Then they come to me. I wish they come to me earlier. But we have, people that we work with through multiple subspecialty centers, and then they get to me. And Dana actually said in her interview, she got all the way down to 96 pounds. And in Dana's interview, if you guys want to see Dana's interview and her recovery, she highlights number 1, big hormone issues for her, Alexander, huge hormone issues. She was like 96 pounds, cystic acne. Turned out she had PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is a hormonal imbalance that we uncovered for her. It's also a hormone pattern. I know it's linked with autoimmune. And number 3, she had some food intolerances, not many. And number four, within the second week of her in the program, her pot symptoms were gone because we worked on digestion first. So these are all the different pieces. So if this is like lighting your fire with a boom and you want the POTS multi-part training series, put POTS in chat and we will get that to you. And most importantly, I also think that if any of you guys like action is really important, a goal without a plan is just a dream. So if this educational format, tying cause and effect, talking about how we can teach you fundamentals, we can use your data, we can actually have you learn to listen to your body as data, and we work with you to help you put it together for what? To gain self-confidence, to gain certainty, and to gain self-trust. The answer to lies and misconception is self-trust. And the best way to do that is to work with people who know how to put that together for you to help you rebuild self trust. I think the worst part of trauma is the erosion of our self trust. Truly, not only in the trust of others, but in our self trust. So, this is the road which I am highlighting of how to bring that back. And honestly, for me, like the most important thing is get on a call, book a call with our team. We would love to talk to you, learn what's going on with you, because so we can show you if and how we can help you, right? I don't know unless you talk to me. Like those of you who are watching right now and not typing a thing in chat, it's a missed opportunity because I would love to be able to get your questions, your feedback, and learn more about you. And some of the people here have been here on all my lives, so I want to thank you in advance. All right, next question. By taking your digestion supplements, does this correct my digestion? It can for some people. So, I mean, thank you for asking, Allison. So, digest it. Okay. So, example, digest it. So, for me, this is our best selling supplement in the entire MYMD shop. Okay. And because digestion is such a freaking root cause that doctors know nothing about. But here's the problem, Allison, which is that typically when people have digestive stuff broken, they nor their doctor know there's all these different steps and they don't have any education around it. So they don't know which step is broken. And frequently it's not just one step is broken, it's multiple steps that are broken. So when we learn more and then we also get data to pair with it, we're going to figure out more and more of that with you, right? But at the same time, one of the problems is that genetically we can be born with steps of our digestion weak or broken. Think about, and now get ready for this, write this down as notes. If you were a baby once, or you've had a baby or a child, how many of them were born with colic? How many of them had trouble? How many, had colic, trouble tolerating certain formulas, had certain food aversions, right? Or their tummy just ached, or they had nausea. How many kids are like, I'm nauseated when they wake up in the morning and can't eat or don't want to eat, right? So what you're finding, or how many kids have eczema, bad cradle cap, right? Or asthma. These are all food reactions that are from digestion problems that we were born with. And there were signs when we were kids, but we don't train pediatricians or parents to see it. So if that is already a boom, type in chat how that already is a boom for you in your own history or in your child's history, right? And so genetically, we can already have certain steps that are broken, but then what happens or weak, and then as we go through life, the prescriptions that actual doctors prescribe can shut off or break other steps in digestion. Certain infections like the big C, SIBO, different types of infection can really mess with it, right? And so multiple steps can be broken. Now, here's the thing. When I had to really work with people with digestion, you're like, I want something that covers a lot of steps, which means in the real world supplement formulation out there, I formulate supplements, means a ton of ingredients. And so I tested all these different products working with people with mast cell autoimmune issues. And when you work with a product that has 30, 40 ingredients, what happens? They can't tolerate the supplement. So for me, I'm very careful to say, hey, how do I formulate a digestive supplement that is going to take care of every step in digestion with the minimum amount of ingredients that works? And that's what I had to do. So Digest It is the product. And for many people, taking one with small meals and two with big meals can deal with the majority of their symptoms, right? If it's digestion related. So you can go, when you look at Digested and you look at all the videos on YouTube and testimonials with people about it, it is a miracle product for a lot of people. That being said, remember, when I say, let's say food, you react to food, 50% of your reaction can be related with digestion and 50% could be allergy. So, in the sense is when Allison says, "Will digested cure all my gut related symptoms or food related reactions?" The answer is going to be no. Or it may, depending on what the underlying root cause is for you. The other part of it is tolerability and supplements. A lot of what I do is I work with a lot of people that have tons of tolerability problems with not just food, but medicine and supplements. So this has really minimal number of ingredients and works really well. That's why it's the best selling. That's why it's the most rebought supplement, right? And it solves a lot of problems for a lot of people. But are there people who are like, well, I need a product that may even have maybe minus this ingredient, or maybe I have this step that's more broken than other steps? Can there be customizations for digestion? And the answer is yes, yes, and hell yes. And that's what I love to do because not one product is going to be the solution for everybody. I can tell you that. But when I have all these pieces of data and we work with individuals, I can help you become the expert of your digestion. I can help you. Candace said this yesterday. She's somebody we work with, working with. She's a parent we're working with her child, Ellie. And she said, Dr. Maggie, you teach skills. I want you to understand how we get past trauma is to gain self-trust. And how we gain self-trust is through your learning of skills. And one of the most important skills that I can say that I teach in all my programs is how to think like me. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. All right. Next question. Okay. Does gluten matter for autoimmune if you don't have celiac? Yes, yes, and hell yes. Because celiac is just one type of autoimmune disease. Gluten matters in every autoimmune disease is the simple answer. But when you go through the main program, for example, whether it's the thyroid program, my thyroid masterclass, because thyroid is pretty much almost everybody with thyroid issues, it's autoimmune, everybody. Yeah, that's a major lie and misconception. There's a whole thyroid mess out there. Um, but in every autoimmune disease, gluten is a major trigger, period. And I want to be very clear on that. Okay. And a lot of people don't even realize diabetes is an autoimmune disease. Fibromyalgia is an autoimmune disease. POTS is mast cell histamine intolerance. So gluten is really a super trigger for all autoimmune diseases. Awesome. Next question. Let's punch through these. I love it. Any other? I just want to make sure I got through everybody. Okay, Dawn says, how do you know what item you're reacting to when the reaction is delayed? That's why you need data. It's really hard to figure out. And so I'm going to go through because if it's immediately after eating it, that's a no brainer. And that's what the allergists deal with. Allergists deal with immediate anaphylactic IgE emergency, E for emergency reactions. That's an easy thing. I'll leave it to them. Okay. But when that's not your issue and you think you have food reactions and it's delayed, we need data to clear that up. Because what if it takes 3 hours or 3 days for the symptom to show up? So the answer the naturopathic and functional medicine has to this is let's just go on an elimination diet. How many of you been on elimination diets and that hasn't worked and spent 18 months or years trying to slowly reintroduce foods to figure it out? If that worked, you don't need me. And I want to cut through 18, 24 months of hell for you from a pocketbook standpoint, life quality standpoint, and a trauma standpoint. There's nothing that creates more food trauma than extreme elimination diets that many of you and I have been on, right? So data is really critical. So when you work with me in my food mapping masterclass, and if you're interested in learning more about my food mapping masterclass, we'll put a link to that with the Road to Food Freedom, and we'll put a link to my food mapping masterclass. But book a call with us first. So with what I think it's really important is in food sensitivities, which is low food allergy, there is not a lot of good testing. 99% of the testing on the market really suck. Okay. IgG testing for food sensitivity suck. That doesn't mean there isn't testing that rocks. Okay. That is good. Okay. And I have gone through 100 and at this point about 164 different companies of testing to test them. And I've done over probably at this point 12 to 13,000 different tests to know that there is good quality testing out there, right? But that there is an issue there. And that's what we do with the blood work we do in my food mapping masterclass. That being said, though, even with the best test, remember, we're dealing with individuals that have an altered immune system. Your body's attacking yourself. So would you say that's a normal immune system? No, right? So people who tend to need food sensitivity testing are also have a high likelihood of having some genetic gluten issues. Also, they can have some what we call false positive, false negative reactions. Sometimes I can't say the word to V, okay, or the big C. Those can alter the immune system. So it can actually alter the way your test results look. So it's really important, not only number one, to get the right test, which is what we do in Food Mapping Masterclass, but number two is for me to teach the Rosetta Stone. What's a Rosetta Stone? It's the cipher of how to understand those results in individuals where they tend to have high false positive and negative results. I don't know how many times people have gone to other naturopathic providers or functional providers or mail order and said, I'm going to order some IgG testing and they call it good. Please, 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 please be careful. Be careful with that because you're really, how many people have done that route or even gone to the doctor and gotten the $2,000 Cadillac test, which is not the Cadillac test, and to find out that you are allergic to everything. Okay. I'm going to tell you that's BS. It's not real. That is not real. It is scientifically impossible for you to have reacting to like 80, 90% of food on the planet. That you either, number one, got a bad test, or number two, you had a provider who had no training on how to understand these test results, which is what most providers are. All providers are, because you know why? They come to work with me to learn how to get certified to understand these results. So we do provider certifications. Okay. So I know they don't know because they come to me to learn. And I know they don't know because I struggled. I had to learn all this myself over the last 28 years, working with, tens of thousands of individuals. So, and E says, I did a mail order test and it was so silly. And, hey, if it works, look, if there's a cheaper solution, a better solution that works, I'm all for it. Do it. Okay. But if there isn't, I'm not going to lie to you about it because today is about truth. What is the truth? So I'm telling you the truth. There is a right test. We do the right tests. There is education that's needed from me to you so that you understand exactly how to make these results totally data accurate, that is actionable, and that causes improvements. Okay. Period. And it has to include a master level course on training you to think like me on digestion. And yeah, and Allison was asking, can learning, maybe I need to learn about how to use supplements, right? Maybe and half the time telling people stop taking all those supplements or don't buy the supplement or that one, because is there a scientific and educational approach to have expert discernment around what supplements you should take and don't take? Hell yes, you do. Okay. So I am going to be the last person on earth. Like somebody told me last week, Dr. Maggie, you're the worst salesperson. I'm like, why? And they're like, well, you own a supplement company, you formulate supplements, and yet you spend 50% of your time in the program teaching us why not to take this supplement or that supplement, why not to buy this one, why not to buy that at all, or why we even need it. And that's true. It's my philosophy, because I think that the most important skill here that I'm teaching is how do you get educated to have self-trust and listen to body, your data from your body and data from the lab testing that you get to be able to make really intelligent decisions, right? That's what I do. Cool. Did I answer all the questions? Are we good? Or, okay. Jack says, is there any benefit to have common POTS antibodies tested? Quick search shows there's quite a few. So the question is going to be, what is going to move you to solutions? I am a solution-oriented individual. Okay. A lot of people are stuck in trying to find a diagnosis. So if you have the symptoms of POTS, and let's go, gosh, I'm going over time. I just want to make sure my time is good. I've been here over an hour, everybody. I'm going to ask a question here. Okay. Because there's a lot of questions here on POTS, long haul, or dysautonomia. Would you guys, every single one of you with questions on POTS, please put POTS training in the chat, and we're going to get like our 9-part training I've already done. But I'm going to ask you, would you like me in the next couple of weeks to do a live Q&A all around POTS, long haul, or dysautonomia for you guys? If you would want me to do a live, put live please on POTS in chat. And if there's enough of you, I will do it, because I don't want to do it injustice, because it's a topic near and dear to my heart. And I saw POTS, long haul, dysautonomia for breakfast. So give me some lunch or dinner to challenge me with. So if you want me to do a live and do a Q&A with that, I'm happy to do that. But I think the question was, what was the question on that? I'm sorry, I missed the question. I just want to make sure I do at least a quick justice to that one. Oh, is there any benefit to doing the testing? I'm going to say this is that if it helps you mentally or you, so the reason that people are stuck in diagnosis is your doctors who don't know how to deal with POTS. They're trying to figure out, is there a diagnosis and is there a referral they can do to get you out of their office? Because there's nothing they can do for it. So a lot of people be stuck in that diagnosis phase, whether it was various blood work or tilt table testing, all these different things. And the only reason to get a diagnosis, not that there's anything to be done, is to really cart you off and send you off to the cardiologist because it's blood pressure and heart rate changes, right? So they're like, it's got to go with the cardiologist. Cardiologists are screaming and begging because they're sending people to me. You know why? Because the only thing a cardiologist knows how to do with POTS is to give like 2 or 3 different medications that don't really help most of the people with these symptoms because it's not a heart problem. It's not a heart problem. Okay. So therefore, and all of you guys are on a diagnostics train with POTS, long haul, or dysautonomia. My thing is, it doesn't move you any closer to solutions because they have no solutions for you. If it helps you mentally to come up with the diagnosis or naming it, and I know people like that where it helps them, great, keep going with it. I'm more interested in hearing how we're going to end this, Jack. How are we going to end this? I don't care what name it is, what flavor it is. I want to just end it. So that's where my focus is. If that makes sense, Jack, I hope that's helpful. Yeah. And Jack says, please give me the POTS training series. Okay, everybody. So I had time to go over just some of the lies today that are really common that, give me a second. So I had time today to go over some of the lies that your doctors believe about food and food trauma. So if this was helpful, I want you to type the one thing in chat that was your takeaway. Okay. That was an hour of my time. And that was for some of you, an hour of your time. So I would love to know in that hour, what was the one thing that was like a big aha moment for you? That'd be really cool for me to know. I love hearing from you and knowing what that is. If my team could start popping up some of the ahas, that'll be great. Now, the other thing is for me, the reason to do this is how are we going to have you recover from food trauma? How do we have you recover from lies, mistruths, misconceptions? And that's by gaining self-trust and self-confidence. And that, number one, the pathway for that is going to be education, mentorship, learning to trust the data from your body. And we have a program called My Food Mapping Masterclass. If you're interested in learning more about that, we have a link in chat for you to learn more. If you're interested in more education, I have a free training series called The Road to Food Freedom. Type Road to Food Freedom in chat. And most importantly, if you want to work with me to kick ass, tick names, and chew bubble gum to end your food trauma, to end POTS, mast cell, autoimmune issues, go ahead and just scan that with your phone. Book a chat with our team. We opened up a bunch of slots tomorrow and Monday for you guys so that we can talk to you. Because you know what? The sooner and quicker you get to a plan, the more you remember, a goal without a plan is just a dream. Stop dreaming. Let's get a plan in action. All right, everybody, that is a wrap for me. Without further ado, I'm going to say goodbye, and then I'm going to see you guys in the coming weeks. Next week, I'm going on my honeymoon. Yes, I just got married 3 weeks ago. Next week, I'm going on my honeymoon, so there will not be a live next week, but I'll be back. And if you wanted me to do that POTS long haul with dysautonomia live, pop that in chat, and I'll see how many of you guys could benefit from that. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day.